Here today with State Senator Lou Gentile. And Lou, thank you so much for sitting down with us. The question that I have and voters in Jefferson County have is, what will you provide the residents of the Ohio Valley with another term?
Well, let me just say that I think I've built a reputation as being someone that is accessible, that works very hard, that's trustworthy, and that listens to my constituents and the people that I represent. And you have to know that you can count on somebody. That when the chips are down and when Columbus is making decisions that will affect our area, that you have somebody that's willing to step up and go to bat for the district. I think my leadership, and I think that I've been effective as a leader, and my leadership has mattered. One of the things I point to is when we work together between the United Mine Workers and the local officials in Harrison County, as you well are aware and had covered that when we learned and discovered they were going to close the Mine Safety Training Center in Cadiz, we built a coalition. We went out and demanded that the state maintain that for our miners to ensure health and safety and quality training. As a result, now they're going to be building a new facility, state-of-the-art facility, multi-million-dollar facility. You know, I think that the #1 issue on the minds of people here in Jefferson County and throughout the whole district is job creation. And I think we've got to work collectively, you know, at all levels of government, with the private sector, with our workforce, and to make sure that we're creating jobs, we're keeping the good paying jobs we have. And one of the things I've tried to do to help with that is to make sure that we're investing in our workforce. I was successful at securing $200,000 in scholarships to make sure that our young people who want to stay in the area have an opportunity to go to places like Eastern Gateway, get a quality education, and transition into this oil and gas industry as it starts to reemerge. You know, so that's the focus I have: job creation, looking at existing jobs we have, like our Samus plant up the river. I was there with my colleague, Representative Sarah. We've urged the PUCO to approve a plan for them that will allow them to stay in business and keep those jobs. So it's about being active. It's about engaging with the people in the district. I will continue to do that and continue to work day and night to make sure this district has a voice in the state Senate.
One of the common criticisms or concerns we hear from folks up and down the river is that they don't feel as though they have a voice in Columbus. Yeah. Are you that voice? Are you somebody that's a yes man for party leadership, or are you fighting for the Valley every day?
No, I mean, I think I'm someone that's fighting for the people in this area, someone that is a voice for the Valley. I'm from the Valley. I like to think that I am the Valley. I was raised in this community by two hardworking parents. My mom was a school teacher for 43 years. My dad was a steel worker and worked for the county. They instilled in me the desire and obligation to give back and to help people. And that's what I've been doing through public service, through serving in the legislature, through serving in the office of Appalachia. And so I'm very proud that I go to Columbus, that I oftentimes do vote against my own party when it's in the best interest of my district. But I've also stood up to the leadership in Columbus, the majority in Columbus, when they've cut our schools. They've taken millions of dollars from our schools, as you know, millions from our local communities. In order to have a robust economy and bring jobs and keep good paying jobs, the state must have a partnership with the local communities. That means keeping the oil and gas revenue in this region. As you know, that's been a big debate. I've been fighting to do that. I've pushed amendments that would increase funding for local governments, which would allow more police officers and firefighters to stay on the street. And education is fundamental. And I did not support the last Senate budget because it cut millions of dollars in funding from our schools here in Appalachia and Southeast Ohio. So I think my priorities have been in line with the people of this area. Invest in communities, invest in education, make sure we have a good workforce, a strong, educated workforce, and that we're making sure our roads and bridges and infrastructure, including broadband, is getting the kind of investment it needs for us to be successful.
Economically, we've suffered some tremendous losses over the last 4 years. Obviously, we think of Ormet as one of those. How do you ensure that those losses don't continue to pile up and that we do see more positive projects with, you know, what potentially could happen there in Dilley's Bottom?
Sure. First, I think more emphasis needs to be placed on looking at our existing jobs. I have urged the state jobs officials, Jobs Ohio in particular, to not just always chase the huge projects, which we need to do, and we want to land those, but to make sure that we look at what we have. The SAMUS plan as an example. Companies like CVG, which we're urging the governor and federal leaders to do more on this project, or on that facility. So I think we need to take an examination of what we have, the good jobs we have, work to keep those, to make sure that those folks, small businesses, are getting the attention they need from the state. But also I am working in collaboration with folks at all levels of government to make this ethane cracker a reality. And I think if we're able to secure this ethane cracker plant, that will begin to revitalize the entire Ohio Valley economy. First and foremost with the thousands of construction jobs at that site, the permanent jobs, the supply chain jobs that will come with it. But I think long term we can become an area that's involved in petrochemical manufacturing, which would create a more sustainable economic environment for the region. So I'm working with folks, at all levels of government, at the state level, Jobs Ohio, to make sure that that happens. But I also am having a lot of conversations with folks in Columbus about the need to not overlook our existing employers and employees here in the area.
Campaigning is always interesting, right? It's always interesting. One of the things that your opponent does frequently is connect you to Secretary Hillary Clinton. They talk about your role on the state leadership team. They talk about her stance on coal. What are your thoughts on the Secretary and maybe your opponent's desire to connect you to that specific candidate?
I'm running for the State House, and that's the bottom line. I think I've been somebody who's accountable, who's honest and hardworking, who people see in the community day in and day out. And so while opponents of mine and special interests in Columbus who are funding these attacks and these misleading, untruthful ads, they want to try to make this election about something that it isn't. They want to nationalize this election. This election is about the people of this district, and I have been a consistent voice for them. I'm proud to say that I have the United Mine Workers of America endorsement. The coal miners don't endorse you unless you're for coal. But it's easy to say that someone's for coal. What I'm for is to make sure that these workers, their families, are taken care of. There's a fight going on now in Washington, D.C., which is not directly connected to the state, but in regards to the pension plans for these mine workers. I've issued a resolution at the State House urging Congress to approve that legislation, the Miners Protection Act, which will take care of these retirees. I've gone out to meet them on their way off to D.C. at 3 in the morning. I fought to keep the Mine Safety Training Center here. So I think that I have a great record when it comes to standing up for workers, when it comes to standing up for families and the communities. And so my opponents want to distract people and mislead people and tell lies, quite frankly, about my record. But people that know me, people that have watched my work, I think will tell you that I'm somebody they can count on and somebody that always does what's in the best interest of the district.
I was going to ask you about coal, but you kind of hit it all there. One thing people frequently get hung up on is that D or R that is beside a candidate's name. How can you ensure Republican voters that Lou Gentile is going to work for them regardless of their political affiliation?
Well, one thing I pride myself on, Ryan, is that no matter who people are or where they're coming from, we have an obligation to serve them. And I have worked across the aisle in Columbus. Senator Troy Balderson out of the Zanesville area, he and I have worked together on legislation throughout the years. Most recently, in an effort we came together to urge more funding for juvenile diabetes. We had bipartisan support. It was passed unanimously in the state Senate. And so I have a reputation, I think, as somebody that listens, that works with people on both sides of the political aisle, and will always do what's in the best interest of the district. And I think anything else, people need to take with a grain of salt. I tell them, turn off your TVs, talk to your neighbors and your friends and the people that truly know me and know my record. And when it comes to energy in particular, we have a unique opportunity in this region, one that I think I've recognized. And I am an outlier within the ranks of the Democratic Party across the state when it comes to making sure that we're developing these vast energy resources in a responsible way. But I've been honest with people. I've told them that I want to see this happen for our area, both coal, oil, and gas, whatever these natural resources are. I believe we need an all of the above strategy, frankly, to use all of our energy resources. Anything that will create jobs, anything that will bring new jobs to the region, I'm going to be at the forefront on working to make sure that it's in the best interest of the people here. So, you know, to those who are independent voters, Republican voters, I have a lot of supporters who are Republicans. I would just reassure them that after the elections are over, when I go back to the State House and back to Columbus, I will be working closely with folks on both sides of the aisle.
I would be doing a disservice to the Ohio Valley if I didn't ask you what state government can do to turn the tide of the war against drugs, specifically the heroin epidemic that has become so prevalent. I'm sure you've seen the images out of East Liverpool and heard the phone calls from around the state. What are your thoughts? How can the state improve in the battle against heroin?
Well, this is an issue that I think affects everybody, all walks of life, all socioeconomic backgrounds. And personally, I know people who have lost their lives. Just about everybody that we are all connected to, either a friend, a family member, a neighbor, can identify somebody that's afflicted with addiction. And you know, while I don't believe that any one organization, any one legislative or political body has all the answers, I think it takes a real collective effort on the part of the community. We need to talk to one another. We need to educate our children. One of the things that I'm proud to say I've supported is, over the years, cracking down on these so-called pill mills. When I first got to the legislature, we voted to crack down on those, to put some of those folks out of business. I think we need to make sure that we're doing more for prevention and recovery, that we're directing resources in the area of both prevention and recovery. If we can prevent those who are becoming addicted from becoming addicted in the first place, we'll certainly be a lot better off. But for those who want to recover, those who are seeking treatment, we need to make sure the state is partnering with local communities and providing them with the resources necessary to provide that treatment. I've spent a lot of time reaching out and engaging with local leaders here in the behavioral health community. We know the challenges they're facing. So the state needs to be a partner. We don't have all the answers. Certainly, we've provided Narcan to law enforcement in the event of a life-saving emergency. There are some things that we've done legislatively, but I think overall it's a collective effort. It's all of us working together, and it's making sure those resources are directed at prevention and recovery in a way that I think will help turn the tide here. Certainly a concern I think we all have, and does affect the workplace and does affect our ability to be involved in economic development.
Final question. Frank Hoagland, Lou Gentile, what is the biggest difference?
I think that I've been somebody that the people in this district know they can count on. Somebody that is always accessible and available and that listens and that will work extremely hard. I like to point to some of the successes I've had since I've been the people's voice in the state Senate, keeping some of the jobs here that we have, fighting to bring in new jobs, bringing more money back for construction projects, for job training projects, saving that critical asset in Harrison County. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm hoping that voters will look at my entire record, that they will turn off and forget about the misleading attacks and lies and focus on the person they know, the person that they've seen in action over the last several years. I truly believe that the qualities I have, hard work, honesty, integrity, public service, that those will continue to guide me in the state Senate. And that they will make a difference, and that my leadership in this district has made a difference, and I will continue to be a fighter and a champion for all the citizens and all the people that live along this great river. I think our time is yet to come. I'm very optimistic about our future, about where we're headed, and I want to play a significant role in starting to turn the tide on this economy in this region and make it a region that our young people will be able to stay and a place that people can live, work, and raise a family and have a good quality of life. And those will always be my top priorities while I'm in the State House.
Senator Gentile, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Great to be here.